Chapter 39 Conclusion. The Conduct and Vows of Samantabhadra. At that time, after Samantabhadra Bodhisattva Mahasattva had praised the supreme qualities of the Tathagata, he spoke to the Bodhisattvas and Sudana, saying, "Son of good family, if all Buddhas of the 10 directions were to continuously expound upon the meritorious qualities of the Tathagata, doing so for kalpas as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras, they would still be unable to come to the end of them. If one wishes to perfect these gateways to the meritorious qualities, then one should cultivate 10 kinds of vast practices and vows. What then are those 10? They are as follows. The first is to revere all Buddhas. The second is to proclaim the praises of the Tathagata. The third is to extensively cultivate the making of offerings. The fourth is to repent of karmic obstacles. The fifth is to rejoice in others' merit. The sixth is to request the turning of the Dharma wheel. The seventh is to request the Buddhas to remain in the world. The eighth is to always follow the Buddha's course of training. The ninth is to constantly accord with beings. And the 10th is to universally dedicate all merit." Sudana then addressed him, asking, "O great Arya, what is meant by revering all Buddhas and so forth, up to and including universally dedicating all merit?" Samantabhadra Bodhisattva addressed Sudana, saying, "Son of good family, as for what is meant by revering all Buddhas, through the power of Samantabhadra's practices and vows, I arouse deeply resolute faith in all the Buddhas, all the Bhagavats, as numerous as the atoms in all Buddha kshetras of the 10 directions and 3 periods of time throughout the Dharma realm and the realms of space, and then, as if they were right before my very eyes, with pure actions of body, speech, and mind, I always cultivate bowing down in reverence to them all, manifesting before every one of those Buddha's bodies as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras. With each of those bodies I shall everywhere bow down in reverence to Buddhas as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras. Only when the realms of space come to an end will my bowing in reverence to them then come to an end. However, because the realms of space can never end, my bowing in reverence to them has no end. I shall continue in this way until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. Only then will my bowing in reverence to them come to an end. However, because the realms of beings and so forth up to and including their afflictions are all endless, my bowing down in reverence to them will have no end. It continues on in each successive mind moment, without interruption, free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by proclaiming the praises of the Tathagata, in every one of the atoms, throughout all Buddha kshetras of the 10 directions and the 3 periods of time to the very end of the Dharma realm and the realms of space, there are Buddhas as numerous as the atoms in all worlds. In every place where there are Buddhas, they are all surrounded by an oceanic congregation of bodhisattvas. With extremely deep conviction and directly manifest knowledge and vision, in the presence of each of them, I shall bring forth faculties of the tongue surpassing even those of the goddess Sarasvati's marvelous tongue. Each one of those tongues shall send forth an inexhaustible ocean of voices, and each one of those voices shall send forth an ocean of all worlds and phrases proclaiming the praises of all Tathagata's ocean of meritorious qualities. They shall do so until the very exhaustion of the bounds of future time, doing so continuously and without interruption throughout the Dharma realm, having no place they do not pervade. I shall continue in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. Only then will my praises come to an end. However, because the realms of space and so forth up to and including beings' afflictions are endless, these praises of mine will have no end. They continue on in each successive mind moment, without interruption, free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by extensively cultivating the makings of offerings in each of the atoms throughout all Buddha kshetras of the 10 directions and 3 periods of time to the very end of the Dharma realm and realms of space, there are Buddhas as numerous as the atoms in all worlds. In every place where there are Buddhas, they are surrounded by an oceanic congregation of many different kinds of bodhisattvas. Through the power of the practices and vows of Samantabhadra, I arouse deep, resolute faith and directly manifest knowledge and vision with which I make offerings to all of them of supremely marvelous offering gifts, namely flower clouds, garland clouds, heavenly music clouds, heavenly canopy clouds, heavenly apparel clouds, and clouds of various kinds of heavenly scents, including perfumes, burning incenses, and powdered incenses, with each of the clouds such as these being the size of Mount Sumro, king of the mountains. I light many different kinds of lamps, including butter lamps, oil lamps, and all kinds of fragrant oil lamps. The wick of each of these lamps is as large as Mount Sumru, and the oil of each of these lamps is like the waters of a great ocean. Using all kinds of offering gifts such as these, I constantly make offerings. Son of good family, among all the kinds of offerings, the offering of Dharma is supreme, including, for instance, the offering of cultivating in accordance with what was taught, the offering of benefiting beings, the offering of gathering in beings, the offering of substituting for beings and taking on their sufferings, the offering of diligently cultivating roots of goodness, the offering of never forgetting the Bodhisattva's works, and the offering of never abandoning the Bodhi resolve. Son of good family, when compared with the merit of but a single mind moment of Dharma giving, the measureless merit from making all the aforementioned kinds of offerings would not amount to even 100th part, 1,000th part, a single part in 100,000 kodis of nayutas of parts, a single part in a kala of parts, a single part in the greatest amount reached through calculation, enumeration, or analogy, or to even a single part in an Upanishad of parts. And why is this so? This is because all Tathagatas venerate the Dharma, because cultivating in accordance with what was taught gives birth to all Buddhas, because if bodhisattvas practice making offerings of Dharma, they thereby succeed in making offerings to the Tathagata, and because cultivating in this manner is what constitutes the true making of offerings. I continue this vast practice of making the most excellent kinds of offerings until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. Only then will my making offerings come to an end. However, because the realms of space and so forth up to and including beings' afflictions can never end, these offerings of mine are also endless. They continue on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by repenting of karmic obstacles, the Bodhisattva thinks to himself, throughout the beginningless kalpas of the past, due to greed, hatred, and delusion manifesting in body, speech, and mind, I have committed measurelessly and boundlessly many bad karmic actions. If these bad karmic actions had substance and signs, even all the realms of space would be unable to contain them. Now, with the purity in the 3 types of karmic actions, directly before all Buddhas and Bodhisattva congregations everywhere, in all kshetras as numerous as the atoms in the entire Dharma realm, I sincerely repent of these bad karmic actions, resolving to never commit them again, and resolving to always abide in all the meritorious qualities of the pure moral precepts. I continue in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. Only then will my repentance come to an end. However, because the realms of space and so forth up to and including beings' afflictions can never end, this repentance of mine is endless. It continues on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by rejoicing in others' merit, this refers to the merit created by all Buddhas, the Tathagatas, throughout the Dharma realm and the realms of space, who are as numerous as the atoms in all Buddha kshetras in the 10 directions and 3 periods of time. From the time when they first aroused the resolve to attain all knowledge, they diligently cultivated a mass of merit, never stinting in sacrificing their own bodies and lives, doing so for kalpas as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras. During every one of those kalpas, they sacrificed heads, eyes, hands, and feet as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras, as they practiced all the difficult-to-practice austerities such as these, perfected the many different kinds of paramita gateways, realized and entered the many different kinds of bodhisattva wisdom grounds, perfected the unexcelled bodhi of all Buddhas, and then reached parinirvana, after which their sharira relics were distributed. I rejoice in all their roots of goodness, and rejoice as well in all the merit produced by all the different kinds of beings of the 6 rebirth destinies and the 4 types of birth in all worlds of the 10 directions, doing so even when their merit is only as small as a mote of dust. I rejoice in all the merit produced by all Shravaka disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas throughout the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, whether still at the stage of training or beyond further training, and I rejoice in all the vast merit of the measureless, difficult-to-practice austerities cultivated by all bodhisattvas in their resolute quest to reach the utmost right and perfect bodhi. I continue to rejoice in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. This rejoicing of mind is endless. It continues on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by requesting the turning of the Dharma wheel, in every one of the atoms throughout all Buddha kshetras of the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, to the very end of the Dharma realm and realms of space, there are vast Buddha kshetras as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras. In every one of those kshetras, there are all those Buddhas as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras who, in each successive mind moment, are attaining the universal and right enlightenment surrounded by an oceanic congregation of all bodhisattvas. In all of them, using many different kinds of skillful means in the actions of body, speech, and mind, I earnestly request them to turn the wheel of the sublime Dharma. I continue in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. My always requesting all Buddhas to turn the wheel of right Dharma is endless. It continues on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by requesting the Buddhas to remain in the world, whenever anywhere to the very end of the Dharma realm and the realms of space throughout the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, there are any of the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, as numerous as the atoms in all Buddhakshetras who are about to enter parinirvana, including any such bodhisattvas, Shravaka disciples, Pratyeka Buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all good spiritual guides. I then beseech them all to refrain from entering nirvana and to remain for kalpas as numerous as the atoms in all Buddhakshetras, doing so in order to benefit and gladden all beings. I continue in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. These entreaties of mine are endless. They continue on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by always following the Buddha's course of training, this refers to the practices of those such as this Saha world's Vairocana Tathagata who, from the time when he first resolved to attain Bodhi, continued with non-retreating vigor to make gifts of an ineffable number of his bodies and lives, peeling off his own skin to serve as paper, breaking his own bones to serve as pens, and drawing his own blood to serve as ink, doing so in order to write out copies of the scriptures that, if gathered together, would reach as high as Mount Sumeru. Because of his profound esteem for the Dharma, he was never stinting even in his sacrificing his own bodies and lives, how much the less in sacrificing the royal throne, cities, towns and villages, palaces, parks and groves, or all of his other possessions. He also practiced many other different kinds of difficult-to-practice austerities until finally, beneath the tree, he attained the great Bodhi, displayed the many different kinds of spiritual superknowledges, manifested many different kinds of spiritual transformations, manifested many different kinds of Buddha bodies, and dwelt in many different kinds of congregations. Sometimes he dwelt in a congregation of all the great bodhisattvas. Sometimes he dwelt in a congregation of Shravaka disciples or Pratyeka Buddhas. Sometimes he dwelt in congregations of wheel-turning sage kings or lesser kings and their retinues. Sometimes he dwelt in congregations of kshatriyas, Brahmin elders or householders, and so forth until we come to his dwelling in congregations of devas, dragons, other among the 8 types of spiritual beings, humans, non-humans, or others. Abiding in many different kinds of congregations such as these, with his perfectly full voice like the quaking of thunder, adapting to their particular aspirations, he enabled the ripening of beings and continued on in this manner until he manifested entry into nirvana. I follow all such ways of training as these, and just as I do so with respect to the Bhagavat of this present era, Vairocana, so too do I also follow in this manner in each successive mind moment the training of all the Tathagatas in all the atoms, in all the Buddhakshetras to the very end of the Dharma realm and the realms of space, everywhere throughout the 10 directions and the 3 periods of time. I continue in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. My following their course of training is endless. It continues on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by constantly according with beings, this refers to according with all the many different kinds of beings in the oceans of kshetras throughout the 10 directions of the Dharma realm and the realms of space, including those who are egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, or transformationally born, those who are born in and live in reliance on earth, water, fire, or wind, and those who are born in and live in reliance on the air or the plants and trees. These include the many different kinds of sentient beings with their various physical bodies, their various forms, their various appearances, their various lifespans, their various species, their various names, their various mental natures, their various kinds of knowledge and vision, their various aspirations, their various volitions, their various kinds of behavior, their various kinds of clothing, and their various kinds of food and drink, including those who dwell in many different kinds of settlements, villages, cities, towns, or palaces, and including even all the devas, dragons, and others among the 8 kinds of spiritual beings, as well as humans, non-humans, and so forth, including those without feet, those with 2 feet, 4 feet, or many feet, those with physical forms, those without physical forms, those with perception, those without perception, and those with neither perception nor non-perception. Accord with all the different kinds of beings such as these by transforming my appearance in a manner that is appropriate to them. I then serve them in many different ways and present them with many different kinds of offerings, just the same as and no differently than if I was revering my parents or serving teachers, elders, arhats, or others up to and including the Tathagata. For those suffering from any of the many kinds of illnesses, I serve as an especially good physician. For those who have lost the path, I show them the right road. For those who are in the dark of night, I produce illumination. And for those who are poor, I enable them to find hidden treasure. In this way, the Bodhisattva benefits all beings equally. And why does he do this? This is because if the Bodhisattva is able to accord with beings, then this is to accord with and make offerings to all Buddhas. If he reveres and serves beings, then this is to revere and serve the Tathagata. If he causes beings to feel pleased, then this is to please all Tathagatas. How is this so? This is because the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, take the mind of great compassion as their very essence. It is because of beings that they then produce the great compassion. It is because of the great compassion that they produce the resolve to attain Bodhi. And it is because of their resolve to attain Bodhi that they then realize the universal and right enlightenment. It is just as if there was a great king of trees in a wilderness desert that, so long as its roots find water, its branches, leaves, blossoms, and fruit all flourish luxuriantly. So too it is with the king of Bodhi trees that grows in the wilderness of samsara. It is all beings who form the roots of this tree, and it is all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who form its blossoms and fruit. So long as the waters of the great compassion benefit beings, then it is able to produce the fully developed blossoms and fruit of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' wisdom. Why is this? This is because if bodhisattvas use the water of the great compassion to benefit beings, then they are able to gain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, Bodhi itself depends on beings. If there were no beings, then none of the bodhisattvas would ever become able to gain the utmost right enlightenment. Son of good family, you should understand the meaning of this in this way. It is because one has a mind of equal regard for all beings that one is able to develop perfectly complete great compassion. It is due to using the mind of great compassion to accord with beings that one is able to perfect one's offerings to the Tathagata. The Bodhisattva continues to accord with beings in this way until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. This according with beings of mine is endless. It continues on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Again, son of good family, as for what is meant by universally dedicating merit, This refers to dedicating all the merit produced by all these vows, from the first, revering all Buddhas, up to and including constantly according with beings, dedicating it to all beings throughout the Dharma realms and the realms of space, wishing thereby to enable beings to always gain peace and happiness and remain free of the sufferings of sickness, wishing that, whenever they want to practice evil dharmas, they will not succeed, wishing that the good karmic actions they cultivate will swiftly succeed, wishing that the gates to the wretched rebirth destinies will become closed to them, wishing that the right road leading to human rebirth, deva rebirth, and nirvana will be revealed to them, wishing that wherever beings bring on themselves extremely severe sufferings due to having accumulated all kinds of bad karma, I may then substitute for them in experiencing those sufferings, and wishing thereby to enable all those beings to attain liberation and ultimately realize unexcelled Bodhi. Such dedication of merit cultivated by the Bodhisattva continues until the realms of space come to an end, until the realms of beings come to an end, until beings' karmic actions come to an end, and until beings' afflictions come to an end. These dedications of mine are endless. They continue on in each successive mind moment, uninterrupted and free of any weariness in the actions of body, speech, or mind. Son of good family, this is what constitutes the complete fulfillment of the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 10 kinds of great vows. If bodhisattvas accord with and enter into these great vows, then they are able to ripen all beings. They are able to accord with Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, and they are able to completely fulfill Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's ocean of practices and vows. Therefore, son of good family, you should understand the meaning of these in this way. Suppose there was a son or daughter of good family who filled all the measureless and boundless worlds of the 10 directions, as numerous as the atoms in an ineffable number of Buddha kshetras, with the supremely marvelous 7 precious things, and the most superior peace and happiness of humans and devas, after which they then gave these as gifts to all the beings in all those worlds, and also made offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in all those worlds, doing so continuously and without interruption for kalpas as numerous as the atoms in just so very many Buddha kshetras. As for the merit acquired by that person from doing this, if it were then compared to the merit acquired by some other person who merely heard these kings of vows pass through their ears but once, all of that former person's merit would not amount to 100th part, would not amount to 1,000th part, and would not amount to even a single part in an Upanishad of parts in this latter person's merit. Suppose that there was yet another person who, with a mind of deep faith, accepted, upheld, read, and recited these great vows, or merely wrote out but one of its 4-line verses. This person would quickly be able to extinguish even the karma of the 5 deeds entailing immediate retribution. He would be able to melt away all the many kinds of suffering and torment from the world's illnesses of body and mind, as well as from all his evil deeds, as numerous as the atoms in a Buddha kshetra. All the armies of Mara, the Yakshas, Rakshasas, Kumbhandas, Pishakas, Bhutas, and others, all the evil ghosts and spirits that drank blood and eat flesh, they would all stay far away from him, or sometimes they would even resolve to remain close by and protect him. Therefore, if there is any person who recites these vows, wherever he goes in the world, he becomes as unimpeded as the moon in space escaping from a veil of clouds. He is one who is praised by all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, one who should be revered by all humans and devas, and one to whom all beings should make offerings. Such a son of good family as this becomes well able to acquire rebirths in a human body in which he fulfills all the meritorious qualities of Samantabhadra. Before long, like Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, he will succeed in swiftly perfecting a marvelous form body replete with the 32 marks of a great man. Wherever he is born among humans or devas, he will always reside in a superior clan. He will be able to do away with all rebirths in any of the wretched destinies, will be able to separate from all bad friends, will be able to subdue all adherents of non-Buddhist paths, and will be able to gain liberation from all afflictions. In this, he is like the king of lions who overwhelmingly defeats the many other kinds of beasts. He is one who is worthy to receive the offerings of all beings. Moreover, when this person draws near to the end of his life and reaches that very last kshana in which all his faculties fade, in which all of his relatives and retinue leave him, in which all his awesome power disappears, and in which none of his ministers, great officials, palaces, cities, inner and outer palace possessions, elephants, horses, carriages, precious jewels, or treasuries follow along with him. It is only these kings of vows that do not abandon him. They always lead him forth so that, in but a single kshana, he is immediately reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. Having arrived there, he immediately sees Amitabha Buddha surrounded by Manjushri Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva, and other bodhisattvas, all of whom are possessed of the majestic physical marks and are replete with the meritorious qualities. This person then sees himself born in a lotus flower, receiving the Buddha's bestowal of his prediction. Having received that prediction, he then passes through countless hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of nayutas of kalpas, during which, in an ineffable number of worlds throughout the 10 directions, he uses the power of wisdom to adapt to beings' minds and thereby benefit them. Before long, he will sit at a site of enlightenment, vanquish the armies of Mara, attain the universal and right enlightenment, and turn the wheel of the sublime Dharma. He will then be able to cause beings in worlds as numerous as the atoms in a Buddhakshetra to arouse the resolve to attain Bodhi. Adapting to their faculties and natures, he will teach and ripen them until, having exhausted an ocean of future kalpas, he will have been able to extensively benefit all beings. Son of good family, all those beings who have either heard or have faith in these great kings of vows, who accept and retain them, who read or recite them, or who extensively explain them for others, the merit they thereby acquire is such that, aside from the Buddha, the Bhagavat, there is no one else who could know its full extent. Therefore, all of you who hear these kings of vows must not have any doubts about them. Rather, you should truly accept them, and, having accepted them, you should be able to read them aloud. Having become able to read them aloud, you should be able to recite them. And having recited them, you should be able to retain them, and so forth up to and including being able to write them out and extensively explain them for others. In but a single mind moment, all persons such as these will be able to achieve success in all their practices and vows. The accumulation of merit that they thereby acquire shall be measureless and boundless. They will be able to rescue beings from the afflictions and the great ocean of sufferings. Having enabled them to escape, they will all be able to be reborn in Amitabha Buddha's land of ultimate bliss. Then, wishing to once again proclaim the meaning of this, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva Mahasattva surveyed the 10 directions and then spoke these verses. Before all lions among men of the 3 periods of time in all of the worlds throughout the 10 directions, With pure body, speech, and mind, I bow down in reverence to them all without exception. By the awesome power of Samantabhadra's practices and vows, I appear everywhere before all Tathagatas, with this one body in turn manifesting bodies, as many as Kshetra's atoms, which each everywhere revere Buddhas as many as Kshetra's atoms. In each atom there are Buddhas as numerous as all atoms, each of whom abides within a congregation of bodhisattvas. So too it is in all atoms throughout the endless Dharma realm. I deeply believe that all of them are full of Buddhas. With an ocean of all kinds of voices, each of them everywhere sends forth endless marvelous phrases that, to the very end of all kalpas of future time, praise the Buddha's extremely deep ocean of meritorious qualities. With all kinds of the most excellent marvelous flower garlands, as well as music, perfumes, and canopies, and other of the most excellent kinds of adornments such as these, I make offerings to all Tathagatas. With the most excellent robes and the most excellent incenses, powdered incense, burning incense, lamps, and candles, each collection of which is as high as the wonderfully tall mountain, I make offerings of all such things to all Tathagatas. With a mind imbued with vast conviction, I deeply believe in all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, and, by the power of Samantabhadra's practices and vows, I everywhere make offerings to all the Tathagatas. All the bad karmic actions that I have committed throughout the past have arisen because of beginningless greed, hatred, and delusion, which have then manifested through body, speech, and mind. Of them all I do now repent. I rejoice in all merit that has been created by all beings throughout the 10 directions, by disciples of the 2 vehicles still in or beyond training, and by all Tathagatas and Bodhisattvas. All those lamps of the world throughout the 10 directions, who were the very first to succeed in realizing Bodhi, I now entreat all of them to turn the unexcelled wheel of the sublime Dharma. Whenever Buddhas are about to manifest entry into nirvana, with utmost sincerity I entreat them all to stay, only wishing they will long remain for kalpas as numerous as Kshetra's atoms, in order to benefit and bring happiness to all beings. All merit from revering, praising, making offerings, requesting Buddhas to stay in the world and turn the Dharma wheel, and all roots of goodness from rejoicing and repentance, I dedicate this all to beings and to the realization of Buddhahood. I follow all Tathagatas' course of training, cultivate Samantabhadra's perfectly fulfilled practices, and make offerings to all Tathagatas of the past, as well as to all Buddhas of the present throughout the 10 directions. May all future teachers of gods and men achieve the perfect fulfillment of all their aspirations. I vow to fully follow the training of all Buddhas of the 3 times and quickly succeed in realizing the great Bodhi. May all the Kshetras throughout the 10 directions become vast, purified, and wonderfully adorned, and have Tathagatas surrounded by congregations, all of whom reside beneath a Bodhi tree, the king of trees. May all beings throughout the 10 directions become free of sorrows and illness and always be happy. May they acquire the extremely profound benefit of right Dharma and completely extinguish all the afflictions without exception. As I cultivate for the sake of attaining Bodhi, may I acquire recall of past lives and all the destinies of rebirth, and always be able to leave the home life and cultivate pure precepts, upholding them with no defilement, no breakage, and no defects. May I use the languages of all the various kinds of beings, including those of the gods, the dragons, the yakshas, the kumbhandas, as well as those of humans, non-humans, and others, using all their different voices to thus teach them all the Dharma. May I diligently cultivate the pure paramitas, never forget the resolve to attain Bodhi, extinguish all obstacles and defilements without exception, and completely perfect all the marvelous practices. Even when in the midst of the worldly paths, may I become free of the karma of the afflictions and the realm of the maras, just as a lotus flower does not adhere to its waters, and just as the sun and moon do not remain fixed in the sky. May I do away with all the sufferings of the wretched destinies, and bestow happiness equally on all the many kinds of beings, continuing on in this way for kalpas as numerous as Kshetra's atoms, constantly and endlessly benefiting all in the 10 directions. May I always accord with all beings, doing so to the very end of all kalpas of the future. And may I constantly cultivate Samantabhadra's vast practices and reach the perfect fulfillment of unexcelled Bodhi. May I gather together in all places with all who cultivate the same practices as I do, engaging in actions of body, speech, and mind that are all the same, cultivating and training together in all of these practices and vows. As for all those good spiritual guides who have benefited me and who have revealed to me the practices of Samantabhadra, may they always gather together with me and always feel pleased with me. May I always meet all Tathagatas in person, together with the congregations of Buddha's sons who surround them, and then offer up vast offerings to all of them, tirelessly continuing to do so until the end of all future kalpas. May I uphold the sublime Dharma of all Buddhas, illuminate all the practices leading to Bodhi, and purify to the utmost the path of Samantabhadra, always cultivating it to the very end of all future kalpas. In all the stations of existence, the merit and wisdom I cultivate shall always be endless. Through absorptions, wisdom, skillful means, and liberations, may I acquire an inexhaustible treasury of meritorious qualities. Within a single atom, there are kshetras as numerous as all atoms, and in each kshetra there are an inconceivable number of Buddhas. Each of those Buddhas abides amidst a congregation. May I see them there, constantly expounding on the Bodhi practices. Everywhere in the oceans of kshetras throughout the 10 directions, throughout the ocean of the 3 times on the tip of every hair, with the oceans of Buddhas, and in the oceans of their lands, may I everywhere cultivate these practices for oceans of kalpas. May I understand the pure speech of all Tathagatas, in which but one word embodies an ocean of the many sounds, with voices adapted to all beings' mental dispositions, each one streaming forth the ocean of the Buddha's eloquence. In that endless ocean of their speech, all Tathagatas of the 3 periods of time ever turn the wheel of the sublime Dharma's principles and purport. By the power of deep wisdom, may I be able to everywhere enter it. May I be able to deeply enter the future and exhaustively subsume all kalpas in but a single mind moment. And may all kalpas of the 3 times become a single mind moment, so that then I may be able to enter them all. In but a single mind moment, may I see all the lions among men of the 3 periods of time, and may I also always penetrate the realms of the Buddhas, including their illusion-like liberations and awesome powers. Amidst the extreme subtleties found on the tip of but a single hair, there appear the adorned kshetras of the 3 periods of time. On the tips of all hairs, in kshetras as many as the 10 directions atoms, may I deeply enter them all, and thus purify them. When all the world-illuminating lamps of the future gain enlightenment, turn the Dharma wheel, awaken the many beings, finish their Buddha works, and manifest the appearance of nirvana, may I go there, pay respects to them all, and then draw near to them. By the swift and all-pervasive power of the superknowledges, by the universal gate's power to everywhere enter the great vehicle, by the power of knowledge and practice to cultivate the qualities, by the power of all-embracing spiritual powers and great kindness, by the power of supreme merit to everywhere purify and adorn, by the power of unattached and independent wisdom, and by the awesome powers of samadhi, wisdom, and skillful means, being everywhere able to accumulate the power of Bodhi, purifying the power of all good karmic deeds, vanquishing the power of all afflictions, and subduing the power of all maras, may I completely fulfill the power of Samantabhadra's practices. Being everywhere able to purify the ocean of all kshetras, and liberate the ocean of all beings, being well able to distinguish the ocean of all dharmas, being able to deeply enter the ocean of wisdom, being everywhere able to purify the ocean of all practices, perfectly fulfilling the ocean of all vows, and drawing near to and making offerings to the ocean of all Buddhas. May I thus cultivate tirelessly for an ocean of kalpas. Regarding the most excellent practices and vows leading to Bodhi, as made by all Tathagatas of the 3 periods of time, may I make offerings to them all and fulfill their cultivation by relying on Samantabhadra's practices in awakening to Bodhi. All Tathagatas have a senior son who is known as the Venerable Samantabhadra. I now dedicate all my roots of goodness, wishing that all my wisdom and practices may be the same as his. May I become forever pure in body, speech, and mind, and may all my practices and kshetras become so as well. Wisdom such as this is called universally worthy. May I be able to become the same as him in all respects. In order to everywhere purify the practices of Samantabhadra, as well as all the great vows of Manjushri, may I fulfill the practice of all their works without exception, and stay forever tireless in doing so to the end of all future kalpas. May whatever I cultivate be measureless, and may I acquire measureless meritorious qualities. May I abide securely in the measureless practices, and completely penetrate all their spiritual powers. Just as it is with Manjushri's courageous wisdom, so too it is with Samantabhadra's wisdom and practice. I now dedicate all of my roots of goodness to always cultivating and training in accord with all that they do. What is praised by all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time are just such supremely great vows as these. I now dedicate all of my roots of goodness to acquiring these especially supreme practices of Samantabhadra. As I draw near to the end of this life, may I completely get rid of all obstacles, personally see that Buddha, Amitabha, and then be able to immediately go forth to rebirth in his land of peace and bliss. Then, having achieved rebirth in that land, may I directly manifest the completion of these great vows, perfectly fulfilling all of them without exception, while benefiting and bringing happiness to all realms of beings. In that Buddha's congregation which is entirely pure, may I then be reborn in a supreme lotus flower and personally see measureless light Tathagata, who will then directly bestow on me the prediction of Bodhi. Then, having received that Tathagata's bestowal of the prediction, may I issue countless hundreds of kotis of transformation bodies and, with wisdom power so vast as to pervade the 10 directions, may I everywhere benefit all realms of beings. May I continue on in this until the realms of space and worlds end, and till the realms of beings, their karma and their afflictions all end. Since all such things as these have no time when they will ever end, so too my vows shall ultimately never come to an end. Suppose someone adorned the boundless kshetras of the 10 directions with the many kinds of jewels, offered them all to the Tathagata, then gave supreme peace and happiness to the devas and humans, continuing all of this for kalpas as many as the atoms in all kshetras. If someone else heard but once these supreme kings of vows, and was then able to develop faith in them by which he sought supreme Bodhi with a thirsting and admiring resolve, he would thereby gain supreme merit surpassing that of the former. He would then always avoid bad spiritual guides, would forever abandon all the wretched destinies, would soon see the Tathagata, measureless light, and would then perfect these supreme vows of Samantabhadra. This person is well able to obtain a supremely fine lifespan. This person is well able to gain rebirths in the human realm. And this person becomes bound before long to perfect practices like those of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. The 5 extremely evil actions that entail immediate retribution that he has committed in the past due to having no wisdom powers. If he but recites these great kings of vows, Samantabhadra, in but a single-mind moment, they will all be quickly melted away. His clan and class, as well as his countenance and physical form, his major marks, signs, and wisdom, all become perfectly fulfilled. All the Maras and non-Buddhists will remain unable to vanquish him, and he can become one worthy of offerings for all in the 3 realms. He will quickly proceed to the Bodhi tree, the great king of trees, and having sat there, he will subdue all of Mara's hordes, reach the universal and right enlightenment, turn the Dharma wheel, and everywhere benefit all sentient beings. If anyone reads, recites, accepts and retains, or expounds upon these vows of Samantabhadra, only the Buddha can realize and know his karmic rewards. He is then definitely bound to gain the path to Supreme Bodhi. I have described here only a small part of the roots of goodness acquired by one who recites these vows of Samantabhadra. In but a single-mind moment, all he strives for is perfectly realized, and he enables the success of all the pure vows of beings. I dedicate all the boundless supreme merit gained by my practice of these especially supreme and universally worthy practices, wishing that all beings who have become sunken in the floods may swiftly go forth to the land of the Buddha of measureless light. At that time, after, in the presence of the Tathagata, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva Mahasattva had finished speaking these pure verses on Samantabhadra's vast kings of vows, the youth Sudana was filled with measureless exultation, and all the Bodhisattvas felt great joy. The Tathagata then praised him, saying, "This is good indeed, good indeed." At that time, when the Bhagavat, together with the Arya Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, expounded on such supreme Dharma gateways of the inconceivable realm of liberation, they were headed by Manjushri Bodhisattva. The great Bodhisattvas and the 6,000 bhikshus whose practice had become fully developed were headed by Maitreya Bodhisattva. All the great Bodhisattvas of the worthy Kalpa were headed by the Immaculate One, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Present, too, were the great Bodhisattvas at the consecration stage, with but one more birth before Buddhahood, as well as the congregations of other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas who, as numerous as the atoms in the ocean of all kshetras, had come and assembled there from the many different worlds of the 10 directions. The great Shravaka disciples were headed by the greatly wise Shariputra, Mahamagdalyayana, and others, together with all the great congregations of world leaders among humans and devas, as well as the devas, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, maharagas, humans, non-humans, and others. Having heard what the Buddha had proclaimed, everyone in that great assembly was filled with immense joy, accepted these teachings with faith, and upheld them in practice.